Finally, a further potential explanatory factor of SES school segregation in Chile is the existence of a co-payment mechanism within the state-funded educational system, shared financing. Since the co-payment system allows subsidized schools to charge students' families with a mandatory fee on top of the public voucher, it introduces a price discrimination mechanism among those schools, which is directly linked to the SES students' population. The impact of this co-payment system has been scarcely studied, but the official data shows that it expanded rapidly after the 1993 new regulations. In fact, the number of private schools using the shared finances mechanism increased from 232 in 1993 to 1963 in 2006. Moreover, students attending voucher private schools with co-payment and a proportion of all students attending voucher private schools expanded fivefold between 1993 and 1998, rising from 16 to 80%, stabilizing at a level of around 80%. Accordingly, in urban areas, enrollment in voucher private schools with the co-payment system represented 38% of all fourth-grade students in 2006. As mentioned, public secondary schools can also introduce the co-payment mechanism. In 2006, 24% of public secondary schools students attended schools with this shared finances system. Lastly, there is a high level of variation in the amount charged by schools, ranging from $1 to $133 monthly in 2008, and a noticeable difference between private and public schools, while the average monthly fee in private schools was $32 in 2008. The corresponding value in public schools was $5. Summarizing, the co-payment mechanism introduced an additional source of SES stratification within the publicly funded educational system, by which students with lower SES tend to attend free of charge schools. It is important to note that the segregation dynamics of the school-going population are not an exclusive phenomenon of the poorest sectors. In fact, the variables that we have hypothesized linked to the segregation of the poor, residential segregation, school choice, widespread school selectivity practices, and price discrimination mechanisms can also function as segregation factors of students belonging to the highest SES families. Hence, in this study, we estimated SES school segregation for both low SES and high SES students. In the rest of the paper, we provide cross-section and longitudinal empirical evidence about the discussed issues. Research design. General approach. The methodology of the study was designed to tackle the two main objectives: to estimate the degree and evolution of the socioeconomic segregation of students among Chilean schools, and to study the link between student segregation and market mechanisms operating in the Chilean educational system, especially the co-payment system. The key challenge to accomplish the first objective was to construct and appropriate the database to estimate a valid segregation measure at both national and local levels. The basic approach for the second objective was to implement multiple regression analysis at municipal level. Broadly, segregation can be defined as the distributional difference of various social groups among various organizational units and or linked to a given territory or geographical area. And it refers to the degree of proximity of people or social groups that share a social attribute such as ethnicity, education, or income income level. The literature shows that segregation has various dimensions, including the degree of similitude or evenness, exposure, concentration, centralization, and clustering. In this study, we focused on evenness, which refers to the degree of similitude in the distribution of an individual characteristics among various units of a specific territory, and is linked to the unbalanced spatial distribution of a population with a specific social attribute. The literature shows that there is no perfect segregation index, but to be valid, it should include a limited range of its magnitude to be comprehensible and thereby facilitate comparability. Be solely linked to the distribution of the segregation population and analyze it, and satisfy some basic mathematical attributes. To estimate school segregation, we used the Duncan's dissimilarity index. The D-index estimates the percentage and disadvantaged students, low SES, that need to be transferred between schools in order to have an homogeneous distribution among all the schools of a given territory. The index has a range 0 to 1, where 0 represents a completely even distribution and 1 represents an absolute uneven distribution. For dissimilarity values above 0.6, the literature identifies situations of hypersegregation. Even though the index presents some limitations, for example, it is sensitive to the relative size of the population group analyzed and the number of units in which population can be distributed, such as the number of schools. The rationale for using D, however, is twofold. First, it has become the most widely recognized and used segregation index by the specialized literature. Recently, it has been used in studies measuring school segregation in OECD countries. See, for example, Jenkins, etc., and residential segregation in Chile. Second, the index is simple to understand both its general meaning and longitudinal trajectories. Additionally, its limitation to conduct correlation analysis across different geographical units can be tackled by controlling for information on these zones, as we explain in the next section. Measures and datasets. School SES segregation. The estimate of the D index requires a dichotomous structure of students distribution among schools located in defined geographical units. Therefore, we implemented a principal components analysis to create a national level SES index of students, which includes 3 individual levels variables: mother's education, father's education, and households per capita income. We defined disadvantaged students as those belonging to the 30% of the lowest value of the SES index, We also estimated school segregation for students situated in the 30% highest SES index values. This strategy allows us to compare the evolution of school segregation of a constant proportion of the students' population. It also permits a direct comparison with Larraña and Sangüesa study 2007 on poverty segregation in Chilean cities. We obtained the information about students' family from the SIMSE, Sistema de Medición de la Calidad de la Educación, from its name in Spanish, Education Quality Measurement System. Datasets from 1999 to 2008. Unfortunately, the data needed for estimating the SES index was not available for some grade years. Eventually, we were able to estimate SES school segregation in the national, regional, and municipal level for 4th degree graders in 1999 and 2008. For 8th graders, last year of primary education in 2000 and 2007, and for 10th graders, second year of secondary school in 2001 and 2008, and several additional years in between. We also estimated for specific years the level of school segregation by type of schools, distinguishing public schools, voucher private schools, and non-subsidized private schools. Finally, given the scarce schools alternatives and rural children face, rural educational segregation is highly determined by geographical segregation. Hence, we restricted our study to urban zones. Market mechanisms to explore the relationship between the school SES segregation and the market dynamics operating in the Chilean educational system. We used two sets of related measures. The first one was the proportion of students enrollment at municipal level, 4th grade urban zones, for each type of school: free public schools, free of charge private school, voucher schools, private voucher schools with co-payment system, and non-subsidized private schools. This is a measure of the relevance of private and fee-paying schools at local level. The second measure was the number of schools at municipal level of each defined type of schools, which is an indicator of the theoretically available school choice option for families. We obtained all this information from the National Directory of Schools, which is produced annually by the Ministry of Education. Residential SES segregation. In order to study the relationship between school segregation and residential segregation, we also estimated the D index for the urban zones of 51 municipalities with 100,000 or more inhabitants, which represents around 70% of the Chilean population. To measure residential segregation, the study units corresponded to the distribution of the population in each urban census districts, which are municipal subdivisions. There were 67 census districts in 1992 and 2,328 in 2002. So, on average, there were only 1 or 2 schools per census district. We used data from the 1992 and 2002 population census to construct the SES index based on the average education of people aged 18 or over of each household, and following Lasagna and Sangüesa in 2007 on the presence of 10 durable goods: refrigerator, washing machine, microwave oven, computer, video recorder, water heater, color television, cable TV, telephone, and private vehicle. Then we estimated 1992 and 2002 the index of residential socioeconomic segregation for the household that includes children aged less than 13. The households were more directly linked to the school population. Interestingly, the average day index estimated for these 51 municipalities for all households decreased from 0.32 to 0.31 between 1992 and 2002. Meanwhile, the same index estimated only for households with children aged less than 13 increased from 0.32 to 0.35. In other words, in those municipalities, families with children of primary school going age were comparatively more segregated than the rest of the families. Moreover, that difference tended to increase slightly between 1992 and 2002. Evidence that is consistent with a higher level of poverty among families and children with children. Additional covariates. Since school SES segregation at municipal level may be related with several additional local factors that potentially confound a regression and analysis, we also incorporate data about relevant municipal characteristics in order to avoid overestimating the effects of policy variables on school segregation. Therefore, in our regression models, we include the total urban enrollment in 4th-grade primary schools, which captures the municipality size, SES students distribution, high, middle, and low SES, poverty rate, average per capita income 2006, and per capita income variation coefficient. The data on urban enrollment was also obtained from the 2006 National Directory of Schools, and the source of the last three variables was the 2000 and 2006 National Socioeconomic Characterization Survey, CACEN, of the Ministry of Planning. Data analysis. To achieve the first research objective, we determined the level and evolution of schools SES segregation in Chile by estimating the D index for several grade years between 1999 and 2008 at the national level. Additionally, for specific years, we also estimated the D index for urban areas at the local level. And finally, we obtained separate estimates by type of schools, public, private vouchers, and private non-subsidized. Although the main focus of the study was the SES segregation of disadvantaged students, we also estimated the D index for the subgroup of students from the highest SES. Subsequently, to attain the second research objective, we conducted multiple regression analysis by modeling the relation between 2006 SES school segregation and the intensity of educational market dynamics at local level. Specifically, we used a different econometric cross-section analysis, where the dependent variable was the D index at municipal level. Only the urban areas of 4th grade students who belong to the 30% most disadvantaged Chilean student population. We used the defined variables linked to the educational market mechanisms and explanatory variables, and several relevant municipal level characteristics and control variables. We also added dummy variables for each of the Chilean geographical regions, which represent non-observable fixed territorial and institutional effects. As explained, the most important covariate for this analysis was residential SES segregation, which was expected to have a positive effect on school segregation. Unfortunately, the inclusion of this covariate significantly reduced the sample size and forced us to use a previous measure of school segregation as the outcome variable, since the last population census was in 2002. Thus, we present segregation results for both the larger 2006 sample without controlling for residential segregation and the reduced 1999 sample including residential segregation as a covariate. Tables when A1 and A2 in the appendix contain basic descriptive statistics for all variables included in the analysis for both larger and reduced samples of municipalities respectively.